Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because InDigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at indigital.net.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
In April of 1998, we had a bank robbery in my county. And the suspect got away. And later that evening, on evening shift on 4 p.m. to midnight, the 2 deputies who were working that night, one of them was patrolling. And he was patrolling the south end of the county, and he saw this guy walking alongside the road. And being the good old country boy that he was, picked him up and offered him a ride into town. And his beat partner got up on the radio and said, "Hey, Bob, he sounds a lot like that robbery suspect. Why don't you swing by the sheriff's office and we'll ID him?" Well, Bob didn't have an earpiece in, so the guy heard it. And wrestled Bob's gun, revolver, because Bob, good old country boy, had a 6-shot revolver, wrestled his gun away from him and made him drive past the sheriff's office, up past the square, and shot him in the head.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers to the podcast. Thank you all very, very much. And it is December 2nd, 2024. But by the time this episode comes out, it's probably going to be January 2025 because there are tons of episodes that I have that I've recorded with a bunch of different people, whether it's video and audio or just audio. Either way, there are tons of episodes coming up, very powerful stories. And I'm excited for you to hear all of them. The thing that sucks about this sometimes is that I'm like a kid on Christmas morning and I just want to open up every present, right? So like every single one of these episodes, I just want to throw them all out there, but I can't do that because this is a weekly show. And I have to wait and go through the process. But let me just tell you, it is going to be worth the wait. There are so many amazing episodes coming up. And again, I can't wait to share all of that with you. I am fresh back from back-to-back trips, back-to-back trips, I should say. I was out in Georgia in Cobb County teaching out there, recording episodes and such. And then I was home for a day and a half. And then I flew out to Texas, to Bandera, to the Mayan Ranch with a 360 dispatcher, my homies, Joe Serio, as well as Amy. And we were out there at the ranch for that week. And then that Friday, which I think was like the 15th of November. Holy moly. Yeah. I ended up flying straight to Boston to then drive to Maine for their conference because I was their keynote speaker. I also did the podcast out there, and I got a chance to visit Salem, Massachusetts right before I came back, and that was a lot of fun as well. Again, so much stuff going on, but I am fresh back, and I don't travel for a couple months. So that is awesome. Get to spend some time with the family, play with the kids, and all that good stuff. With all of that said, I'm excited for my guest today. Her name is Donna, and she is with the Travis County Sheriff's Office out of Austin, Texas. Yo.
Hi. It
Oh,
is nice to see you again.
yes, you as well. Yeah, we were out, as I was just mentioning to all of you who are watching and listening. I was out at the ranch. Donna was there as well.
Yes, I was. It was a great time. It was probably one of the best experiences I've had in a really long time. Especially, it was such an honor to be able to do that.
It-
And yeah, I'm memories that I'm going to have forever.
What are so for those who are watching and listening, this leadership training event, again, it's out at a ranch, lasts a week. It sells out a year in advance. People go out there for leadership training, right? However, it's not exactly what they think that they're getting into
No.
because really it's leadership like within themselves and kind of facing your own demons because a lot of times we get in our own way.
Yes.
So for you being out there and those who have never been out there, I guess a little even expansion on what it was that you were saying just now on your experience, what it was like for you.
Well, as you know from sitting in on the majority of the sessions, like,
Mhm.
I was really excited about being able to go up until, like, the week before. And then the week before, I started, getting anxiety about going and, just being away from work and all of my responsibilities at work, and I'm not going to get all of this stuff done at work. And then I'm going out there are going to be all these people there. I'm not going to know anyone and just all of that. And then, on top of I don't know what I'm walking into. I don't know what's going to happen. And there's going to be group stuff cuz everybody goes to training and nobody likes to do the group stuff.
Right, yes.
And so I had all of that built up in my mind and I was like, I'm going to go and I'm just going to suck it up and get through the days, get through the training, get my certificate, get my required hours of training, and I'm going to go home. And you and I both know that is not what happened.
No, not at all.
um, I had almost a religious experience in this training. And one of the consistent things that I have been told throughout my career is I am my own worst enemy. And I get in my own way. I am a
Mhm.
perfectionist. I am very strong-willed, very stubborn. And on almost the very first day, I was very shy. I'm very shy. I call myself an extroverted introvert. I don't like being around people I don't know. And I was around all of these people and I was forced to interact with them because, of course, Joe Serio made us all interact with people, forced us to have conversations, and forced us to all like take a hayride together to dinner. And that was like not part of the plan. Like if you were going to eat, you had to take a hayride.
That's right.
And damn it. And you had to talk to people to do this stuff. And you had to talk to people to get your breakfast. You had to talk to people to get through the classes. And by the end of, well, not even by the end of the first full day, by breakfast on the first full day, I was openly communicating with 3 women who to this day I talk to every single day. We are all going to be lifelong friends. And I told my husband, and I've told other people, that I want to make a t-shirt. See, I told you my dog was going to bark.
It's all good.
I want to make a t-shirt that says, I went to the Mayan ranch and all I got was to sing karaoke, pet Nacho the bull, an entire community, and my self-confidence back.
Amazing.
I found a person that I haven't seen in at least 15 years.
Wow.
And I have the ranch to thank for that.
That is powerful right there.
Yeah.
And
And
I love that you had that experience and you've got these folks as well. And it continues, right? This is that good cycle of communication of again, kind of facing your own demons in a way. As
yeah,
you said, people have said, you kind of get in your own worst enemy. And like I was saying before, we kind of get in our own way at times.
absolutely. And honestly, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if I didn't push myself, because I wouldn't think that I'm worthy enough to be on Within the Trenches podcast. Who wants to hear what I have to say? Nobody wants to hear what I have to say.
There are many people who want to hear what you have to say. And that, that mindset, that mentality, there are a lot of folks who have kind of felt that way as well. And it's like, man, no, every single person, like we all have a story.
Yeah.
And just listening to you and how it changed so many things, you seeing, meeting, finding not just the folks that you were talking about that you have been speaking to every single day, but yourself again, the person that you hadn't seen in such a long time. That person.
Yeah.
And I want to know where it all started. So you're going on about 28 years, right? This coming
Correct.
March 2025, you're going to be hitting 28 years in public safety.
Yes.
So, how did all of it start? How did you get into public safety to begin with?
Well, I had a very unusual start to my career. I had been going to college in downtown Chicago. I grew up in a very small town in central Illinois. And I was going to college in downtown Chicago, and I had to leave college for family reasons. And so I was living back home, and I needed a job. And so I had a friend who was a manager at a temp agency. So she had a clerical position, but they needed to run my criminal history. And I said, well, they can do that, but I don't think I'm going to pass, because like everyone else who grew up in a small town, there's only so many things that you can do in a small town. And when I was 18, I was arrested for possession of alcohol by a minor. But the assistant chief of police had gone to high school with my oldest sister.
Yeah.
And so they did the ride of shame through downtown, and I was never formally booked. I was never fingerprinted,
Mhm.
and I was released with a citation. And my disposition, my court dispo was court fees. That was it. But I didn't know that. I didn't know at the time that it meant no criminal history.
Yeah.
And I said, sure, have him run my criminal history. I'm not going to hear anything. 10 minutes later, she calls me back and she said, well, you have no criminal history, so you have an interview tomorrow at the sheriff's office. And I'm like, okay, doing what? And she's like, you'll be a telecommunicator dispatching out of the jail. Okay. So, since I had just moved home from Chicago from college, my mom and I had to go dye my hair back to my natural color, take all of the facial piercings out because I had both eyebrows pierced. I
No way.
had both sides of my lip pierced. My
Oh, Donna,
fing-
do you have any pictures? Like,
I do, but I am not
no,
showing
no,
it
no,
to
no, no, not to
anybody.
show here. No, 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 no. I was
No,
just wondering
even
because,
my trainees ask for pictures and I refuse.
well, so the only reason I asked too is because when I first started dispatching, I had similar things. I had my ears were gauged, my labret was done, my tongue was done, and my eyebrow was done.
Yeah.
And I remember asking the chief, I said, since people come in and I'm like public facing, like, is this okay? And he just goes, it's fine. He goes, go ahead. He goes, get it through your system. It's just a phase. And I was like, okay. And I did. And yeah, everything is gone now. It didn't
Yeah.
last long, but
It doesn't last long. And my fingernails were super long
oh,
because
really?
one of my college friends did nails.
Hmm.
And so my nails were so long that they hooked over. So we had to soak my nails off. And we did all of this like that afternoon, that evening. So I go in for my interview and I interview with the captain and the undersheriff of this sheriff's office. And in the 30 minutes that it took me to drive home, they had called and offered me the job on a temporary basis through the temp agency. So I started the following Monday for $7 an hour in March of 1997.
Oh, dude. Okay, hold on a minute. There's a lot to unpack here.
I
Right off the bat, we haven't even gotten to any other part. Okay, so hold on a minute. So you were kind of like this, I don't know, like an emo goth, like,
I was just
going?
like, I was when I went to college in Chicago, I had
Yeah.
never been to Chicago in my entire life. I had grown up in this town of 4,400 people.
Mhm.
The first time I went to Chicago was when we went to tour the college. And the college that I went to was a liberal arts university, literally smack in the middle of downtown, 2 blocks away from, ironically, the Chicago Police Department.
Nice.
And I had to walk under the L tracks to get to my school. My major was fiction writing with a minor in environmental science.
Wow.
If I had stayed in college, I'd basically be broke and unemployed right now.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's pretty interesting then, like, just, almost immediate like, the same day, you end up going through this transformation, and so, if you don't mind me asking, so was your hair, like, jet black, or was it, like, different colors? Or if you don't mind me the way you're laughing right now, I can just imagine what it was.
My hair was like traffic cone orange.
Nice. I
Like it
dig it.
was manic panic gone wrong.
I can dig it.
We had used manic panic and it was supposed to be temporary.
Oh.
And it wasn't.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Like, when I went home, my dad was like, "What what happened to your hair?" And it wasn't
It's like,
it
I had a
was
lot of creamsicles. Like, I don't
his
know.
first his first question was, "What happened to your hair, and what is up with all the shit in your face?" Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa, man. Okay, so, so you had that happen, and you quickly transformed.
Yes.
You end up going in for this interview and everything. So was it like it was the interview itself? Um,
I remember nothing about it. I
oh,
don't
so you just kinda blacked out.
I think I was so traumatized. All I remember are the 2 men that I interviewed with,
Mhm.
because I am still friends with both of them to this day, and that's it.
Well, that's cool then I guess. I mean, at least you're still friends with them, you still talk with them and everything too,
Yes.
like, that's cool that you had that. Did you end up getting a chance, like, after the interview or even before the interview to walk into dispatch to
N
see what it was that you were getting into? I mean, I know this is
No,
1997, and there
no,
probably were not a lot of places that were doing sit-alongs,
no.
but so
I had
you didn't even get to go in?
no.
Oh my lord. So okay,
Yeah.
so I'm guessing, like, myself, you probably had Rescue 911, maybe, or any other
So,
example of what you
I
might be getting into?
my my parents really didn't watch Rescue 911,
Mhm.
but I had seen some episodes of it.
Oh,
So
okay.
I had that, and I
That's
was
good
like,
at least.
"Okay." But then when I started, the county did not have 911.
Oh, it was all 10 digit lines?
Yes. It gets better.
Oh my
So
lord.
I loved saying this to my trainees, because I started at an agency that didn't have 911, did not have CAD. I started on pen and paper. And when I say that, they go, "How old are you?"
Oh.
And I go, "Excuse me, I started when I was 5."
Yeah.
And they're
Like,
like,
how dare you?
"How dare you?"
I mean, I started in 2001. It was not that
Yeah,
much further after,
and
and
yeah.
I started around the same pay rate as well. Mine was 7.25 an hour,
And we
and
didn't have headsets. I
yeah, no,
dispatched on a boom mic, and if you've ever dispatched on a boom mic and you've worked on the overnight shift and it's really boring, what do you do on that boom mic?
play play around sometimes.
You rest your head on the boom mic. So, there would be mornings that my lieutenant would come in first thing in the morning, and he'd be like, "Rough night? Why?" And he'd just go,
You've got an impression of the microphone on your forehead.
"Yes."
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is funny. I
Yeah.
Okay, so you end up leaving and you said you were, like, not even halfway home and you got a call back?
No, I didn't have a cell phone because it's 1997,
Oh, that
but
okay, yeah, there's, like,
so
Nokia's, the brick
there's
phones
yeah,
out, right?
it's like
That's
that
about it.
giant bag phone.
Yes, the bag phones, yeah,
So I make it back to my parents' house, and
yeah.
my mom said, This agency called for you." And she's like, "Is that where you interviewed?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Yeah, can you call? Because they want you to start on Monday." "Really?" She's like, "Yes." So I called them back and they said, "Yes, we'd like to offer you the position. Can you start Monday at 8 a.m.?"
Wait,
Yeah,
what day was this?
it was like a Thursday, I think.
So you're you're already gonna start
I'm
Monday.
I'm starting on Monday. So my background check consisted of that criminal history.
Yeah.
That was it.
I mean, that's pretty awesome because now it's
Now it's like 3 months
craziness.
minimum. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You've got the psych test, you've got
Yeah.
other tests, typing test, you've got the background check,
Mhm.
you've
They
gotta
call
give a
your
sample of your hair and your toenails. Not for real. People who
yeah.
are listening, I'm joking.
They call your friends, your friend's friends, your uncle's ex-wife, and her current husband. Yeah. So,
That's crazy.
it's
So,
yeah.
you go in on Monday,
Going on Monday.
and you're walking into the dispatch center. 1, what do you see around you? Like, is a bunch of monitors? Is there more than one person working? And then 2, are you, like, freaking out?
So, I walk in on Monday, and I walk in to the jail. And so, if you've ever been into a jail, they pop open one door and you walk in, and that door has to shut before they pop open the next door. And if they forget about you, you're stuck.
Oh,
So somebody came up front to get me. They walked me back. So I didn't know, like, there's a front entrance and then there's a back entrance. So I went in the front. So they came up front to get me. We went to the back because they're like, you're going to be working in the jail. And I was like, okay. So we go back and we go into the main control room. And we walk into the main control room, and there's like at least 10 people in there, deputies, and because like the midnight shift is going off duty and day shift is coming on duty. So they're having briefing, and I am the only person not in uniform. So I immediately feel out of place, and I am the only woman. And I'm
awkward.
20. And I'm like, this is awkward. And everybody's talking. And when I walk in, they all stop and they turn around and they look at me. And I'm like, hi. And the person who came to get me is like, this is Donna. She's our new telecommunicator. She's going to be with us for at least the next 6 weeks. And if we like her, she'll be hired on full time. And somebody said something, and I was like, okay. And I didn't know how to react because it was one of the older guys. It was an older deputy.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure he said something sarcastic. And I was young and naive, and I didn't want to make a bad impression on my first day. And so I didn't say anything. And they're like, if you don't talk, we're not going to like you. And I was like, oh, great.
Like, "Oh, yeah."
No, okay. And I look, and there are a ton of cameras in front of me, and it's the jail cells. It's the hallways,
Yeah.
and there's the booking room, all the hallways past the jail cells, and there's one monitor that's like a regular computer monitor,
Mhm.
and the strangest keyboard I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's not just F1 through 12. It's like F1 through F40. I've never seen one since.
What?
Yes. I can't even find a picture of it on like a Google image search. But
I
the
need to make a note of this so I can try to look myself.
if you can find one, I want an email. So the lieutenant, the jail lieutenant, is the one who's going to train me
Mhm.
because he has created a DOS-based log on how we log the deputies' radio traffic and what they're doing. Okay. and how we take the phone calls, because we get the all of the 10-digit lines, and there's not a so-called emergency and non-emergency line. There's just the 10-digit lines, and there's also the inside 10-digit line. So he's like, you answer this one, control Donna. You answer this one, blah, blah, sheriff's office. This is Donna. How may I help you? And this. And he's like, this is how we get our teletypes. They also are automatically printed on this dot matrix printer with, with the 2-part paper.
That's right.
Because you also have to do all the warrant confirmations. And there are 3 filing cabinets with 3 doors each for all of the warrants. And I also have to record all of the bookings. And if it's a DUI, I have to use a special VHS tape.
I love that you just said VHS tape.
Yes.
There are probably a lot of people who are going to listen to this
And
who
go
have
home.
no idea what a VHS tape is, let alone DOS-based or teletype or dot matrix.
It's okay. I've had to show lots of trainees what a dot matrix printer is, what a teletype printer is. And for all you kids at home, you can Google a VHS tape.
Yes. And if you want to know what the dot matrix sounds like, it's ring, 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 and then whack.
So,
Oh man.
Yeah. And we didn't have templates for when we entered like runaways and stuff like that. I free-formed all of it.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh.
And this lieutenant, I love him to death, was like, when you talk on the radio, I never want to hear you say these things. Never say information. Every time you key down on the foot pedal, what is coming out of your mouth is information. Never say be advised. Never say, never say VIN number. Never say PIN number. Never say ATM machine.
Oh, because it's redundant, right?
Yes. And never say green in color or red in color or anything in color. He's
Interesting.
very, very anal retentive man.
A little bit.
A little bit. But you know what? 28 years later, almost 28 years later, I still tell my trainees that every time you key down on the foot pedal, what is coming out of your mouth is information. Every time you key down on the foot pedal, don't say PIN number, don't say VIN number. Think about it. Vehicle identification number. And I'm like, oh my God, I have become this man. And,
oh, wow.
And everybody made fun of him, but nobody did it. Wow. And it's like, oh, but some of the things he said, and we would all, because he had this way of speaking, and like right before he was about to say something incredibly sarcastic, he would take his coffee cup and he'd go, and he'd stick his tongue in the side of his mouth. Donna, let me tell you something. And you just sit back, you'd be like, oh God, here we go. Failure to plan on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. Okay. But he was also the very first member of a command staff on the second day. Because like my first day, I was just kind of in shock the whole day.
I bet. I mean, it sounds like it.
The second day, I came back and they're like, she came back. You came back. And I'm like, this is fascinating. And I said exactly that. I'm like, this is fascinating, because it was a very small county in rural Illinois, 100 square miles, 2 deputies and a sergeant on duty per shift. They would one deputy would be assigned to each side of the county, and halfway through the shift, they would switch. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So I'm guessing this was 8 hours
Yes.
only, or was it 12?
It was 8 hours.
Okay.
And if somebody called in sick, like if the telecommunicator for the next shift called in sick, it was a 16-hour shift. No big deal when you're 20 or 21. Now,
Right.
no, I just turned 48. That sounds horrifying. But for a small county,
Mhm.
we had an interstate running through the middle of the county. We were really busy. Officer involved shooting, a homicide. I just like big things. And when I came back, they were like, "Oh, you came back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens today."
like a TV show that you can't get enough of. It's like, I got to see what happens next. Like,
This is a train wreck, I think. But I called my lieutenant. I called him sir.
yeah.
He's like, "You don't have to call me sir. I work for a living."
I've heard that many times from people.
And
Like,
I
I work
love
for a living.
that.
So what were some of the earlier calls, or do you remember your first call that you had, or any of those earlier ones during that time?
Before we got 911,
Mhm.
I would say, like, maybe I feel like I didn't get, like, a lot of big calls. Domestic disturbances and stuff like that. I always got, like, weird calls involving deputies' wives.
What?
Looking for their husband.
That's even more interesting right there. I
Yeah.
wonder though, do you think maybe, and of course you lived through this, I didn't, but do you think that maybe the reason that there wasn't a high call volume is because maybe people didn't know that 10-digit line, or maybe they didn't have it, like, because 911, you just got those 3 digits, right? And people
Yeah.
are, like, calling all the time, so it kinda makes you wonder that if that area, because they didn't have that implemented in that area, if it was because potentially because it was a 10-digit line, they're like, "I don't know what it is, we'll
And
figure it out."
I think it could have been that because just not even 6 months later, the entire county was implemented. 911 was implemented in the entire county,
Mhm.
and it became a combined 911 center between the sheriff's office, um, 2 of the police de no, 1 of the police departments, and there's a state university in that county. They became a conjoined 911 center.
Mhm.
And, I actually ended up staying at the sheriff's office and only working part-time at the 911 center, because I really liked the guys at the sheriff's office. I loved what I did. So I was part-time at the 911 center for a while.
Mhm.
And then, after a year, I went full-time at the 911 center and went from part-time to full-time as a supervisor. Um, which,
Wait a minute, a year in?
when did I No.
Oh,
So,
okay.
um, but
I was just gonna say, "Damn, well done." Like, that's pretty awesome.
no, but I started in March of '97, and about 6 weeks later, they hired the next telecommunicator,
Mhm.
and I trained her. So I was training at 6 weeks in, and, when my 6 weeks was up, they hired me on full time with the county,
Yeah.
and that's when I got to meet the sheriff. and that was terrifying, um, because it was like, um, meeting it was like meeting your dad for the very first time as an adult, or like meeting your significant other's dad kinda thing.
Like that immediate authority figure, like I gotta kind of watch my, like,
Yeah,
observe, right? So
and and it was an awkward experience, like, I had worked the entire night, and then they're like, "Oh, the sheriff is here, he wants to meet with you." Okay. So I go to his office, and he welcomes me in, I go in and I sit down, and the first thing he says to me is, "So I hear you like to drink." Based on my possession of alcohol by a minor arrest when I'm 18. And I and I just looked at him and I said, "No, sir." And I said, "That was, a couple years ago, but I don't, I learned my lesson and not now, not anymore."
yeah.
He goes, "When do you turn 21?" And I said, "In another 6 months." And he goes, "Okay." And he goes, "Do you drink now?" And I said, "No, sir." Lies. All And, he goes, "Okay," he goes, "If I catch you drinking anytime before your 21st birthday, your ass is grass and I'm the lawnmower." My boss said that to me. And
What?
I said, "Yes." And I said, "I understand, sir. It won't happen." And he said, "Good. Welcome to the department. Thank you." I go back to the jail. I walk into the control room and they all bust out laughing. They're like, "Did you get the 'your ass is grass and I'm the lawnmower' speech?" And I said, "I did." They're like, "Great." And they're like, "Let's go." And I'm like, "Where are we going?" They're like, "We're going next door to the Moose for beer." And I'm like,
You're like, um, I don't wanna be mowed. Like, I'll go and spectate. Give me a seltzer water and some lime.
but that was how it was.
That's
So
pretty cool.
it was really cool. But then, like the 911 center started and I started part-time with them in 1998.
Mhm.
And in 1999, in early 1999, they offered me full-time position as a supervisor. And it was really hard for me to make that decision to go. And I did. I went full-time as a supervisor to the 911 center, and I left my guys at the sheriff's office to go to become a supervisor. And I wish I hadn't. Um, because I'm sure you've heard about, toxic environments and everything else, and it really was.
Mhm.
There were leadership issues and issues on the floor, and I realized why they wanted, somebody from the outside to come in as a supervisor. And um, I tried to go back to the sheriff's office. They had already replaced me because by that point, I wasn't working in the jail. I was actually working in the detective section, and they had already replaced me. So I left public safety
Mhm.
for about a year, and then 9/11 happened, and the sheriff called me directly and said, "Will you come back?" He called me on September 12th and asked me to come back, and I gave my notice, and I went back
Wow.
and, stayed there until I moved to California.
Wow. That
They were home. They were my home.
right. So you ended up going back and all so I have to ask, we can back up just a little bit. Um,
I know I'm trying to answer your questions and
Oh, no, this is fine. Yeah, no, this is just a back and forth conversation. That's all. This is good. So what I'm curious about though is you said like you went back. If we go back to when you very first started, you went back the next day and everyone's like, she came back, or
I
people said
did.
to you, you came back. So obviously, like you said, you were fascinated. What else was there? It seems like even up to that beginning, to the time that you left and you came back, there was something, whether it was a call you took, the environment, the people that you were working with. Everyone says that public safety gets into your blood really fast. What
Yeah.
do you think it was for you?
Um, you know, it I don't I can't put my finger on like one thing. You always hear people saying it's that drive to help. It's
Mhm,
that drive to help. Um, being a dispatcher was like one of those things that never even crossed my mind
mhm.
as a child. Um, and when I fell into it, like literally fell into it, um, it was one of those things where everything just clicked. And I'm like, I am really good at this. I'm really good at putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And I'm really good at, telling people where to go. Like, I really like telling the guys where to go.
Yes.
And at this really tiny agency in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, I found a family. And there was one of those deputies in the jail. And I'm going to say his name. His name is Justin Easter.
Mhm.
Um, he quickly became one of my very best friends. He had started just a couple of months before me as a correctional deputy. And we were really close in age. Like he's just a couple years older than I am. And we bonded so quickly that we became like brother and sister. And he just became that person for me. And we got along so well, same taste in just about everything, music, movies. Like he just, I can still remember his laugh. And we're so close. And even on our days off, we hung out and we were just family.
Mhm.
Um, and all of the guys that I worked with, they took me. I was this naive 20-year-old girl who had never experienced anything like this in my entire life. Like you know, I came out of my shell quickly. I'm working in a jail environment and having conversations with inmates who are in there charged with murder. I had a full on like yelling match with an inmate one night, and one of the deputies is like, "Do you know who you're yelling at?" And I'm like, "No." And why do I care? And they're like, "That is blah blah blah. He's here charged with murder." And I'm like, "And are you gonna let him get me?" And they're like, "No, but you're being quite mouthy." And they would play pranks on me because I was their annoying little sister. Like we had one of those giant canisters of pepper spray,
Yeah.
and they would all leave in the middle of the night to go on their rounds, and I wasn't paying attention, and they would take the giant canister of pepper spray, shut the door to the control room, and then like little shoots of it under the door into the control room, and they would pepper
Oh.
spray me.
Oh, no.
Jerks. I got locked in the tunnel that went between the jail and the courthouse. It was the underground tunnel where they would take the inmates to
Yeah.
court. And they locked me in the tunnel and turned out the lights. and left me there for like half an hour one night.
Welcome to the sheriff's department.
Welcome to the sheriff's office. And like a masochist, I went back for more.
Wow.
And you know, and when I say it was a family, in April of 1998 we had a bank robbery in my county. And the suspect got away. And later that evening, on evening shift on 4 p.m. to midnight, the two deputies who were working that night, one of them was patrolling. And he was patrolling the south end of the county, and he saw this guy walking alongside the road. And being the good old country boy that he was, picked him up and offered him a ride into town. And his beat partner got up on the radio and said, "Hey, Bob, he sounds a lot like that robbery suspect. Why don't you swing by the sheriff's office and we'll ID him?" Well, Bob didn't have an earpiece in, so the guy heard it. And wrestled Bob's gun, revolver, because Bob, good old country boy, had a 6-shot revolver, wrestled his gun away from him and made him drive past the sheriff's office, up past the square, and shot him in the head. And he survived and came up on the radio. And I've been shot. And the dispatcher couldn't understand him. And his beat partner said, "Where are you?" And he said, "I'm on 7th Street. And my apartment was a block away from where he'd been shot. And I heard the gunshot. And I didn't know what happened." And this is how much of a family it was. It was a manhunt for this suspect. They called out every deputy, and they just threw on sweatpants, pajama pants, and they were like, "We find him, we're going to kill him. I don't care." And they found him. They didn't kill him. He's still in prison, and Bob survived and went to the hospital. And at work the next day, they said, "Bob wants to see you," to me. And so after work, another deputy and I went to the hospital. And I was the first person who got to see him in the hospital after he got out of surgery. He'd been shot behind his ear, and it came out behind his left eye and blinded him. And it was a big family that just banded together. And there were things that happened in this tiny agency that, you know, a 21-year-old girl should have probably run away from. And I ran toward, because I felt like I could make a difference. And the calls that I took there and the people that I helped there, and the friends that I made there, you know, And, Bob was off work for a year, and he came back to work as the chief deputy of the county when a new sheriff was elected.
Wow.
And
It's interesting. The entire thank you for sharing that, by the way. Just a deep core memory of, working with everyone, especially early on, the age that you were, um, just being in a small area, the way you said, there are a lot of different things that happen. Some things are similar, right, in every place, but it's that bond, and I think a lot of people can relate to that, as well. But
yeah.
there are some things, that you experience with those folks that'll always be yours, even
Yeah.
though you're sharing it. You know, it's that connection you'll always have with those folks. Like I've told people that I used to work with, and some of the folks that are still there in the dispatch center that I was at, um, the last center that I was at. I tell them sometimes when we're reminiscing on stuff, I'm like, we can tell this story to anybody that we want to, but it's us who will always have this, that will have this experience that no one else will ever be able to truly understand.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's probably why, when we're not at work and we're all sitting around talking, that we talk about work, and
Mhm.
we tell stories about, like, oh my God, do you remember this day? And oh my God, do you remember this call? Because nobody else really gets it. And, like, now my boss, she's always joking with me, like, your brain is probably your brain is amazing, but it's also terrifying because of the things that you remember.
Right.
She's
Yeah.
like, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, and you can remember, like, I can truly remember the very first actual 911 call that I took, but she can't remember, like, what she's like, I don't understand why you remember this stuff, and I'm like, "I don't know." So, she's like,
There's there's some sort of impact, I think, or maybe something that we experience in our past lives, not our past lives, but in our past,
"Yeah,
that we're just able to relate to a lot of those different calls, that they end up coming up or that they stay there. There was some sort of significance. You mentioned that very first 911 call. Is that one of the ones that you shared already, or?
no, it's not," and I know that we've talked, like, when you've done some of your, like, in DC and at the
Mhm.
ranch and stuff, and it's not one of those calls. Like, I have so many in my head, but it's not one of those, and I just remember it doesn't it's not traumatizing, it's
Mhm.
not, but it's just there. So, my very first 911 call was a woman called because she found her son hanging in the barn. And, I had 0 training on it. I had no training. The only thing that I could tell her was not to cut him down, because I was thinking from an investigative standpoint.
And with that as well, maybe one of the reasons that you remember that one so well, one, I mean, that was probably your first, right?
Mhm.
And also now, with all the experience that you have and people that you've trained, I mean, that's part of your story that you can also share with others who may have had something similar. And maybe that's one of the reasons, because it was, one, it was your first, and two, it's something that you're able to share with others who are on their journey, whether it be in the beginning or even after they've been there for a while, that you're able to relate to a person in a different way than someone else might who may have not had that type of call yet,
Yeah.
because you're able to express those feelings and say what it was like for you and help others not feel alone. I don't know. That's just my take. I'm not sure, but it could be that.
It could be it, and it could be because, when I told her, not to cut him down, she was not happy.
Mhm.
And I don't know. So,
So you end up moving to California, you said, right?
yeah.
How did you end up in Texas?
Um, it was time to leave California.
Mhm.
My first husband and I got divorced, and I stayed in California for, oh my goodness, almost 8 years after we got divorced. And um my auntie didn't want me to move back to Illinois because, the economy there is terrible, and I didn't know where to go. And I had friends here in Austin, and she's like, move to Austin. And I'm like, well, you're the only person here that I know. So she's like, I'm going to introduce you to people. So she starts giving my cell phone number to her friends, and
Just willy-nilly? Like, here's a phone
willy-nilly.
number.
And she gives my cell phone number to this guy. And I get this text message one day, and it's like, hey, this is, Emily's friend Michael. And she told me she's trying to get you to come to Austin. And I know you're coming next month to visit for your birthday. She told me to text you because she's trying to get you to be friends. So, yeah. And she also told me, don't be a dick. That's my husband.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
I was wondering if that's where it was gonna go, but I wasn't
Yes.
gonna jump in and,
So,
oh, no shit.
we've been together over 10 years,
That's
and
amazing. Well, it sounds
we've
like he wasn't a dick then, so
he's a jerk sometimes, but that's
okay.
okay because I give as good as I get. But
He
yeah,
was probably like, "Thanks, babe."
yeah, we've been together since that text message, and he's hysterically funny. He's a native Texan. He's an Aggie, and we've talked extensively about what I do for a living,
Mhm,
and he supports me, and he knows that um you know he's been with me every step of the way as I've, gone kind of up the career ladder at my agency now. And, we, when we, when I talked to him about what I do, and I told him, like, hey, there are going to be days that I come home, and if I pull into the garage and you hear my car turn off, but you don't hear me get out of the car, just let me sit there. Let me sit there until I come in the house. If I come in the house and I don't talk to you, let it go. Let me be the one to say the first word. So, and he's actually, um, he's been with me through some of the really terrible things, through the call that I talked about, at the ranch. He's been with me through quite a few things. My mom passed away 5 years ago, um, and he's been amazing, and and it's way more supportive than my first husband.
Well, that is awesome, and also it's just interesting the way life turns, right?
It
Certain
really is.
paths, a a phone call or how of, "You need to come here," and
Yeah,
then a text message,
yeah.
all this communication type things that you've been doing and have been involved in for years, and excuse me, a continuation of that communication that leads you to Texas and a friend who eventually ends up being your husband and everything. I mean,
Exactly.
what a turn, like what a
E
whirlwind.
exactly, yeah.
That is amazing. And I have enjoyed having you on this episode, learning more about you, your stories, which you have tons more, it sounds like.
I do.
I could talk to you all day. But as we go into the wrap up of this episode, I kind of want you to think a little bit, and maybe you have already. I kind of feel like you have maybe thought about this already. Just in my head, I mean, kind of a full circle moment coming to the ranch just a couple weeks ago, going through all of this stuff, but maybe also some reflection on your part of just listening to you talk about how it was in the beginning, coming home from college, applying, going through this complete transformation, right?
Mhm.
Starting a whole new career that just kind of blows your mind. I know that's how I felt. I feel like that's kind of how it was for you as well.
Yes.
And you go through all of these years, and then you kind of have a full circle moment with another transformation at the ranch. Did you ever think back then, going through that transformation to now, that you would be where you were at?
No, I didn't. I never thought that, well, I never thought that I would be here, and, um, I never thought that I would be living in Texas. I never thought that I would be teaching people how to be dispatchers. Um, I never thought that I would be talking to people about, just part of what I've done over the last almost 28 years. And I never thought that I'd still be doing it all these years later and really not even thinking truly yet about retiring. Like, I've still got a lot to teach and I've still got a lot to do. I've got ideas and I've got plans. Um, I'm constantly blown away by the things that I learn. And I tell my new hires, my trainees all the time that the day that I stop learning is the day that I'll give it up, is the day that I'll walk away. Um, because I'm constantly learning something new. And just a few weeks ago, learning something about myself and learning that, you know, it's okay to admit that you're scared of something. And like Amy said, do it anyway, do it scared. And, um, and I'm trying to do that every day, to just be scared and do it anyway.
That's awesome. Now, I have one last question for you.
All right.
It's the question that I asked all of you at the ranch. And it's a question that I ask everybody at the very end of the episode. And it's one that I don't send on purpose.
Oh God.
So, as we were talking about your reflection here, thinking about back then, if you could go back in time to talk to yourself at the beginning of your career, even that day that you were getting everything out of your hair and all the other stuff, if you could talk to yourself, and this is not to change anything, because I feel like there are things that we go through that make us who we are today
Mhm.
and make us a lot stronger, or the experience or whichever it may be, these lessons that we learn. It's to simply give yourself some advice. If you could go back in time to the beginning, what would you tell yourself?
it's okay to say no to the overtime. And it's okay to say it's okay to say no if it means saying yes to yourself. And it's okay to put yourself before everybody else. That's not being selfish. And I wish I had done that a little bit more over the last couple of decades.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Excellent. That is excellent advice. I love it. Donna, this has been awesome. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on and sharing your story with me. And we might have to do a part 2 because I'm sure we we were just scratching the surface here. But thank you again for being on, for being
You're
willing
welcome.
to
Thank
share
you.
your story, and just for everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving us a voice. I think that it's very, very desperately needed. More people need to hear about us and to hear, you know, we need humanizing.
Well, thank you.
Dispatchers need to have a voice, and thank you for being the person to give it to us.
I appreciate that, your kind words, and it has been an amazing experience. I don't take it lightly. It has been awesome, and I just thank you and everyone else for your trust in me to share your stories. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Yes, it has. Thank you.
So I'll be right back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media. You can become a supporter of the podcast as well. To do this, the easiest way is to simply go to links.co/WTT podcast, and that's links with 2 I's.co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything there: email, social media, latest episode, where to order Imagine Listening Volume 2, and actually, as of today, December 2nd, 2024, I have completed my version of Imagine Listening Volume 1. I am very excited. I am slowly putting it out there, but it is completed. I uploaded it to, because I'm self-publishing, so it is going to be going out. However, I will tell you right now, the launch date will be February 16th, 2025. And if you don't know the significance of February 16th, look up Haleyville, Alabama, and the very first 911 call that was ever placed. It's that date, and I am excited. So make sure to look out for that. Again, it is links with 2 I's.co/WTT podcast. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital, a leader next gen core services. Shout out to subscribers of the podcast. As always, this can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn Live and X. And you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. And I will see you all in the next one.
You just listened to a Code 7 Network podcast. If you have any questions or would like to be a guest on the show, send an email to WTTpodcast@gmail.com.